It's approaching the supreme moment. Reality striking closer than it seems, don't it? Go ahead.
What's good? We're going to continue this little series and test out different units with the Kaioken Mechanic. For those that have joined just now and not really familiar with that function within Dokkan Battle, Kaioken Mechanic or effect is basically the ability to continue to stack the attack or defense. It doesn't really matter, but to the point where it's going to be an infinite amount of increases. So over time, in a really unrealistic setting, it's going to allow your units to put out substantially more in damage output. So this is pretty much like the very beginning. This is their basic attack, without the stacking effect, so to speak. So over the course of the video, you will see the TEQ Kaioken Goku as well as the Strength Ultimate Gohan, damage output to increase over time. Both of these units have the ability to raise the super attack, which is equivalent of about 30% increase per super. So it does take a lot of times to continue to stack this up, and again, this is not really a realistic setting. You're not going to see these types of levels in a realistic battle setting. More or less this is a kind of a testing series and just to see how high these can actually go. And the short answer to that is an infinite amount. As long as you continue to super and raise that attack, it can definitely be upwards of 99 million, which is the damage cap. But it obviously takes a shit ton of time to get to that point. So we're not going to do that to that level, but over time you will see it increase. And for the TEQ Kaioken Goku, he does have the ability to, as part of the passive, the attack and defense does increase at 70% when performing a super attack. However, the secondary part is attack increase of an additional 50% when HP is 50% or below. Now you will see that periodically. You're not going to see it a lot, but you will see that again periodically, and you'll know the difference when that passive kicks in or not. So that does make a difference. That extra 50% will provide a lot more in damage output. Again, this is, after so many turns, and having HP below 50% is a little bit risky. So, you'll see that. You'll see glimpses of that. Now, as far as the Ultimate Gohan, he can already hit a pretty decent amount as it is, but it's always interesting to see that, even with a normal attack, how crazy that attack output actually is. So you are seeing the steady increase of the attack for both of these units. The TEQ Vegito Blue is also on here as well. Now, for those asking about the intelligence version of Ultimate Gohan, that's in the works, and you'll see that come up pretty soon. So don't worry about it. It's definitely in the works, and I will do that. You do have a couple of units that do help out, depending on the rotation, obviously, but for example, link skills and passive skills that apply attack increases for, the rest of the allies. You will see units like that in here as well. Again, this is very, very unrealistic. It's more or less like almost like a testing environment type of deal, but it's always interesting to see, like, the crazy damage output. It's really just for that purpose and just kind of having fun a little bit. And the hardest part is keeping Rose's HP to a high enough level to where he doesn't get KO'd. Now, eventually the HP is going to get depleted, and I know some people had mentioned doing it on the Broly event, which is fine because Broly has substantially more in HP. However, the damage is severely cut off, so basically you're not going to be able to see like the crazy high numbers unless you're basically fully dependent on the damage potential, the key meter output basically. So it's a little bit more fun, but I'll probably switch over at some point on the Broly event. But for now, this is kind of like a fun way to experiment. And that's really all this is. It's basically a test or experiment just to, see how things are. So I know you guys like this little series, so I am going to continue doing this for the ones that apply with, that have the ability for the Kaioken Mechanic or effect. So there are a few more left that I can test out, so I'll periodically do that. You know, the crazy part about all this is seeing the normal attack and they're hitting for a couple million. You know, that's probably the craziest part about all this is being being able to see a couple million in damage with just a regular attack. So, you know, that kind of gives you a visual display of how much of an impact this has, even though it's very unrealistic. Again, it's always fun to do this, so that's really the point of this series. So I think starting off, the Kaioken Goku had, you know, maybe upwards of 400,000 or so with the super attack. Now you're looking at, you know, mill filled up with the key meter, and then the actual damage output is about, you know, 2.9 million, which isn't crazy compared to, you know, some of the other units like the Strength Ultimate Gohan. But the TEQ version doesn't even have a Dokkan Awaken. Level 100 is the max, and you know, it's a couple million is still a couple million, you know what I mean? So it's still pretty good. And I didn't keep track of how many turns have went by with each of these clips. Honestly, it's a shit ton. That's all I know, and probably at least, you know, 60 turns or so is, I think, what pretty much occurred. So it definitely does take time, and it is definitely time consuming. But you know, so it's all good. I mean, if you got the time for it, this can certainly be replicated by really anyone. So even if the units aren't necessarily 100% potential, I mean, you're not going to see you know, damage output quite to that extent, you know, as in a short amount of time. But at some point, you know, it's going to show the same amount of power output. Really, it's just a matter of, you know, how many super attacks you continue to stack that attack. It is definitely continuing to climb. I mean, 6 million with the critical with the TEQ Kaioken version of Goku. I mean, toward the early part, I mean, that was nowhere close to what he was able to hit for. So, the units that have greatly increased attack will definitely make it quicker in terms of getting the damage output higher in a much more, you know, efficient manner. But essentially, the concept is the same for all units across the board, as long as they have the infinite stacking ability instead of a turn-based restriction. So, for example, the physical Kaioken Goku, very, very good unit. Surprisingly, I think that unit actually surprised a lot of people when the banner came out. But he has a one-turn restriction where it greatly increases that attack for one turn. So it's a finite amount. So that's, you know, one of those units where you only see that per turn, and then you have others that have 3 turns and 6 turns and what have you. So it really depends on each of the units. So hitting for about Vegeta Blue is hitting for about 3.2 million with the normal attack. There he goes with the 5.2 with the critical, and yeah, crazy stuff. So HP is below 50% in this case, so you will see a much higher damage output with the Kaioken Goku here. Yeah, with the critical right at 10 million, so definitely a decent amount of output there. And Ultimate Gohan's able to hit for 10 million with the critical as well. And this is pretty much an infinite loop. As long as Rose stays alive, I mean, this can continue to go on for as long as, as possible. So, this is pretty much a glimpse of, how this guy is. Both of these units, the TEQ Kaioken Goku and the Ultimate Gohan. Again, this is a testing type setup. It's very unrealistic. You're never going to see these types of damage output on a real battle setting, but it's an interesting video to always do. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and certainly appreciate you watching.